How I Won the World Series by Dan Gutman. The story I'm about to tell you is so amazing, so improbable, and so preposterous, you're going to think I must have made it up. But I swear every word of it is true. This is not fiction. You may have heard that the Boston Red Sox lost the 1986 World Series to the New York Mets because a guy named Bill Buckner let a ground ball go through his legs. It's a lie. The truth is that the Red Sox lost that game because of me, Dan Gutman. I won the World Series that year. That's every kid's fantasy, isn't it? It sure was when I was a kid. You're standing there at home plate. The bases are loaded. Your team is 3 runs down in the bottom of the 9th. 7th and deciding game of the World Series. There are 2 outs, full count. It all comes down to 1 pitch. The crowd is going crazy. It's all up to you. And you hit a walk-off grand salami that wins it all. It didn't exactly happen that way, but I do feel that I was responsible for the outcome of the 1986 World Series. Let me explain. The story actually starts a bit earlier. Well, a lot earlier. Back on January 5th, 1920. That was the day the Red Sox sold a 24-year-old kid named Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. Up until that point, the Red Sox were the kings of baseball. They'd won 5 of the first 15 World Series. Ruth led them to the championship in 1916 and 1918. But after they sold him to the Yankees, the Red Sox would not win another World Series for the rest of the 20th century. And the Yankees, who had never won a World Series before Ruth arrived in New York, would go on to win 27 of them and become the most dominating team in baseball. The Red Sox were cursed, it was said, because they'd sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees. It was called the Curse of the Bambino. It's not that Boston had lousy teams all those years. The Sox were usually close to first place, but they always seemed to choke at the end. Twice they lost 1-game playoffs to decide the American League pennant, 1948 and 1978. Every time they made it to the World Series, 1946, 1967, and 1975, they lost Game 7. It's almost as if the ghost of Babe Ruth was watching over Boston all those years, making sure the Sox never won at all. What does any of this have to do with me winning the World Series? I'm getting to that. Be patient, will you? Okay. It was the night of Saturday, October 25th, 1986. I was not in Shea Stadium in New York City, where the World Series was taking place. I was at my brother-in-law's apartment in Princeton, New Jersey. That's how good I am. I didn't even have to be at the World Series to influence the outcome. It was Game 6. Boston won the first 2 games, and the New York Mets won the next 2. Game 5 went to the Sox, putting Boston ahead 3-2. One more victory, and the Red Sox would be world champions for the first time since 1918. The curse would finally be over. 68 years. That's a long time to wait. People had been born, lived their lives, and died of natural causes since the Red Sox had last won. The last time the Sox were world champions, there was a world war going on. The first one. Personally, I never cared if the Red Sox won or lost. What I cared about was the New York Mets. I grew up in northern New Jersey, and I had been a Mets fan since I was 10. That's 1965, when they were just a few years old and really awful. I'm talking about laughably bad. Most of my friends rooted for the Yankees, who won the pennant every year and had superstars like Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. Me, I like to root for underdogs. So, let's get back to the 1986 World Series. As I said, 1 more win and the Red Sox would be champs. Roger Clemens, 24-4, was the Boston starter. Bob Ojeda, 18-5, for the Mets. In the top of the first inning, one of those only-in-New-York moments occurred. Ojeda was about to throw a pitch when everybody began pointing up in the air at something. A yellow parachute was floating down into the stadium. No kidding. It had a "Let's Go Mets" banner trailing behind it. The parachutist, an actor named Michael Sergio, landed near the pitcher's mound. He jogged over to the Mets dugout, slapped hands with pitcher Ron Darling, and was led away by the police. That should have been a tip-off that this was going to be one of those games you'd remember for a long time. Anyway, Clemens had a no-hitter through 4 innings. His fast